We'll start.
Dirmi che più non ardo, dirmi che più non amo, a voi begli occhi, a voi me ne richiamo. Occhi che penetrate dell'ama mia, il più riposo stoco, sapete pur ch'io ardo e di qual fuoco. Occhi luci beate, ditelo a chi non crede, che non vivresti o non avessi fede. Occhi luci beate, ditelo a chi non crede, che non vivresti o non avessi fede.
As we transition into this holy time of Shabbat, we'll add our voices now to words from the Psalms. How good it is to be together. Hine ma tov on page 10 in our Siddur, page 10.
Hine ma tov u'manayim sheverachim gam yachad. 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 Hine ma tov u'manayim sheverachim gam yachad.
Shabbat Shalom. It is good to be together on this very special Shabbat. It is good to be joined and led in music this evening by musical guests from the Viola da Gamba Society of New England, as well as, and I'm going to try to pronounce it, but we'll get the correct pronunciation later, Il Concerto de Solomoni Rossi Ebreo, co-directed by Cantor Emerita Louise Treitman, who needs no introduction here at Temple Beth David. Beloved voice and presence and leadership, as well as co-directed by our own temple member, Rich Lustig. And it is wonderful to come together to hear and join along with special Jewish compositions going back into the 1600s. And we'll learn more about the music, more about the instruments as we celebrate this special Shabbat. Hopefully you picked up some words to some of our special music on your way in. And certainly those who are used to being at Beth David, you know you're welcome to sing anytime, and welcome to guests as well. Welcome to those joining us on our live stream. And we are going to bring in the light of Shabbat. It is an honor to invite our temple member, Sally Weiner, also an accomplished singer in the Jewish community, to light our Shabbat candles. And we are in our prayer book on pages 2 and 3.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter this sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
And before I turn it over to Cantor Treitman, want to wish Sally a happy birthday as well.
Sorry, it's my fault. On page 20, we continue with Lecha Dodi, and this special melody from Italy. This particular melody is from Milano. And I hope you'll join in. You'll learn it very quickly. Perhaps you already know it. Lecha Dodi, page 20. Did I tell you that? Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, Hishmianu el ha-miyuchad, Adonai echad u'shmo echad, L'shem ultiferet v'litila, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelecha, Ki mekor ha-beracha, Merosh mikedem nesucha. Sof maaseh b'machashav techila, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela. 5. Hitoreri, Ki va'orech kumi ori, Uri, shir daberi, Kevod Adonai alayich nigla, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela. Verse 9. Bohi v'shalom ateret bala, Gam b'simcha uv'tzola, Toch emunei am segula. Boi chala, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela. We continue with Mizmor Shir, the Yom HaShabbat, the song for the Sabbath day, Psalm 92, on page 22.
Mizmor שימחתני אדוני בכל במעשה ידיך הגדלו מעשיך
We continue on page 26 with a Chatzi Kaddish.
Shemere Rabba,
We'll remain standing and read together our prayer for creation on page 31 as the Shabbat leads us into our season of light. I invite you to join with me. This is an hour of change. Within it, we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai, ha'ma'ariv aravim. We'll join in the English on page 32, words that will lead us into Shema. Everlasting love, you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Please be seated. Continue with the rest of the Shema. Page 36. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha v'hayu advarim ha'eleh asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta b'ham v'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'mechtecha b'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת.
I'll invite you to join with me in the English on the top of page 39 as we prepare for singing our Song of the Sea. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Page 40.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, מלכותך ראו בניך בוקע הים, לפני משה ומרים, זה עליינו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך, לעולם ועד.
ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל. Continue on page 42, another special melody we'll sing together, Hashki Venu, our prayer for the evening as we pray for a peaceful night and waking up to new light and new day.
We probably won't sing this together.
Now we can sing together our prayer for celebrating Shabbat, this weekly gift of joy and peace, page 44.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
We move now into our Amidah, our standing prayer, if you are able, or you may rise in spirit as well. Page 46 will begin our opening blessings together and then take some time to add the prayers from our hearts, and we'll come back together with another special song to get us into the mood for Hanukkah. Adonai sifatai tiftachu fi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu. Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor Ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם, ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מחכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות Umido melech, melech memit umechayeh, umatzmiach Yeshua. V'ne'eman ata lehachayot hakol, Baruch ata Adonai, mechayeh hakol. Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, ukdoshim b'chol yom yahalelucha selah. Baruch ata Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. Blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God. We'll continue silently. Feel free to be seated when you are ready.
L'shabeach tikon bet tefilati v'sham toda nizabeach letachin matbeach mitzar hamenabeach azegmor b'shir mizmor chanukat hamizbeach ma'osur Yeshuati lechanahem l'shabeach tikon bet tefilati b'sham toda nizabeach le'etachin matbeach mitzar hamenabeach azegmor l'shir mizmor chanukat hamizbeach.
We take this moment in our service to add a prayer for health and healing. You can find the words of Misha Berach on page 253. We are especially praying for these members of our Temple family and community who are ill. Colin Monroe, Inbar Bataviva, Maddie Bot Linda Walter, Guy Ben Rita, David Ben Marcel, Enrico Mascaro, Annette Zerachian, Benjamin Horowitz, Bradley Dichter, Matteo Goldman, Toby Weiner, Esya Rushovskaya, Eileen Arnone, Jean Sands, Roseanne Cohen, Tom Fiorino, Carolyn Weil, Stephen Driscoll, Jerry Spingarn, Caroline Spingarn, Beth Gottlieb, Kirby Druffel, Abraham Ben Chana Levi, Gloria Weller, Yitzchak Ben Esther Miriam, Carol Kotler, Myrna Offen, Arnold Offen, Daniel son of Elizabeth, Joseph Sands, Ruth Brofsky, Liana Brodsky, Richard Slifka. If there are other names that you'd like to share out loud that we may think of them as well, you may do so.
Shalom Ben Sima, and all those in our hearts as well. Misheberach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. We are delighted to be with you tonight to offer this special music composed by Salomone Rossi Ebreo. Some of you may remember almost 30 years ago, can't believe it, but almost 30 years ago, when we had the opportunity to listen to this wonderful music with violas da gamba and chitarrone. At that time, I was actually sitting in one of those chairs, you may remember. I had started playing viola da gamba with my classmate and colleague Carol Lewis when we were first in college together. First of all, I want to thank the Viola da Gamba Society of New England for awarding us the Silbiger Grant. I know there probably are some Viola da Gamba folks on the live stream, so thank you so much. This made this evening possible. This grant was created in memory of John Lyman Silbiger, who was active in the Boston early music world. So thank you again. Salamone Rossi lived from around 1570 to 1630 and was an important figure in the musical transition from the Renaissance to the early Baroque. He was a violinist and a composer and wrote both vocal and instrumental music, such as madrigals, canzonettas, sinfonias, trio sonatas. You heard a madrigal in Italian as you came in this evening, and you'll hear some of Rossi's secular music, instrumental music, shortly. Rossi served as a court musician. Like many of his colleagues, Monteverdi and Gastoldi, he provided music for the courts of Italy during that time. Rossi was in Mantua, Mantova, at the Gonzaga court, where he served for most of his working life. He was a Jew, and because of his privilege in Mantua, he was exempt from wearing the badge required of Jews at that time. Most of Rossi's music was secular, but in 1622, exactly 400 years ago, he published the first Jewish choral music with Hebrew texts, Hashirim Asher Li Shlomo, the Songs of Solomon, surely a play on the biblical love poetry, Song of Songs. It is this music that we are sharing with you tonight. Although it would not have been performed with instrumental accompaniment at that time, we are happy to have any opportunity to sing and share this beautiful music.
Let's face it, congregations don't like it when the music changes. Why aren't we doing the traditional melody to Adon Olam? Why can't we sing Lecha Dodi the way the last cantor did it? Change is hard, especially when it comes to the music in our services. But if it makes you feel any better, this is not a new phenomenon. Salamone Rossi, along with his mentor and helper, Rabbi Leone di Modena, attempted to introduce a change in the way the liturgy was sung that was every bit as radical as switching from Louis Lewandowski to Debbie Friedman, probably even more radical than that. Now, we don't know for sure that Rossi's music was ever performed in a synagogue, but we do know that it was intended to be performed. In the groundbreaking publication of Shir HaShirim Li Shlomo in 1622, the score indicates by two vertical lines and an empty measure that the leader's part, represented by the choir, stopped and the congregation provided the appropriate response. You heard examples of that tonight during the Chatzi Kaddish and the Baruch Hu. We do know that this kind of music was introduced to the synagogue, but not in Mantua, Rossi's hometown. Rabbi Modena, in his judgment that was included in the publication of Rossi's music, relates that in the town of Ferrara in 1605, where he was living at the time, quote, "We have with us 6 or 8 intelligent persons who, knowing something about the science of song, lift their voices and sing in joy in the synagogue, on holidays and festivals, songs and praises, hymns and melodies, Ein Kelohenu, Aleinu L'Shabeach, Yigdal, Adon Olam, with order and balance in the arrangement of the voices according to the aforementioned science. Yet a man arose to expel them with speech on his lips by saying that it is improper to do so, for rejoicing is prohibited, and psalms are prohibited, and praises according to the science of the said song are prohibited, ever since the temple was destroyed. Even though most of them, the singers, were learned in Torah, he ridiculed them in this manner in the eyes of the multitude who heard their voices," unquote. So even back in 1605, when new music was introduced to the congregation, some liked it and some didn't. But we hope all of you have enjoyed the small sampling of Rossi's beautiful music we have presented this evening. And when we conclude the service with Rossi's setting of Adon Olam, please don't be the man who stands up and yells.
So I'd now like to invite up the founders of the El Dorado Ensemble, Carol Lewis and Chris Henriksen, to share a few words about their instruments at this time.
Five of us here are playing different sizes of viola da gamba. In Italy, even today, this instrument is called a viola. It's not a viola da braccio, wouldn't fit. But it's a viola da gamba, and it's its own family. It has frets like a guitar. It has usually 6 or 7 strings, kind of like a guitar. But you play it with a bow. It's called viola da gamba. It got its name in Italy Dagamba means to hold it with the legs, which you will have noticed that we all have very strong legs and are holding our instruments up. But it's played with a bow, and this is a treble viola da gamba. We have another one down there, and we have a tenor viola da gamba, and we have two basses. These are several of the sizes. Our modern double bass actually comes from this family. It lost its frets somewhere along the way. We will be playing for you shortly a couple of pieces from two different collections of instrumental music that Rossi published in Venice, one in 1607, one in 1608, both called Sinfonie e Gagliarde. We'll play a symphony, a sinfonia, and a galliard, a sort of a stately piece, and then a more lively piece, which is actually dance music. It is important to to know that these pieces were composed specifically for instruments such as ours. They say on the title page, viole, and that, as I say, was one term for these instruments back then, and actually also to lead into another instrument which is also on the title page, the chitarrone.
The chitarrone was developed in the late 16th century. It's basically a large bass lute, and it was used for accompanying voices and instruments. And it's quite interesting that the first composer from whom we have specific parts for this instrument is Solomon Rossi. In his first book of 5-part madrigals from 1600, 6 of the pieces has specific accompaniment parts for the chitarrone, and the way it's done, it's very clear he understood this instrument in and out. I myself can imagine that with the madrigals, he might have strapped himself into this instrument, sung along, and playing the chitarrone part to support the choir. He asks for this instrument throughout just about all of his books, both the instrumental sonatas and the pieces that we're playing here today, as well as the vocal music. And following him, this instrument was asked for by most of the composers in the 17th century. The tuning of the instrument varies a bit. The tuning I have here today is this. A bass instrument.
Well, I appreciate, Rich, what you shared about the evolution of synagogue music. And as some of you here know, Rabbi Mike and I have introduced some new music to Temple Beth David. But perhaps an unknown fact, I played recorder in an early music ensemble in college. So I appreciate this music tonight and extend my recorder. It's sort of similar to flute, so not viola da gamba, recorder. But I extend my deep gratitude to Cantor Louise Troyman, to Rich Lustig, to all of our incredibly talented musical leaders this evening. We here at Temple Beth David are blessed to receive this grant and to enjoy the music this evening. And just thank you so much. And this week's Torah portion, I'm not going to give it of our Torah, but Vayeshev is the beginning of the story of Joseph, which is the start of the Jewish people's kind of journey to being strangers in a strange land, to quote Tevye from Fiddler on the Roof. And as Jews throughout our history, we have taken in the culture around us and also contributed to the cultures that we have lived in. And tonight's music, I think, is an example of that experience that started all the way from this week's Torah portion in the Torah, and we continue to do that today. And it's wonderful to keep this historical music alive. Here at Temple Beth David, we are going to be getting ready for Hanukkah this Sunday morning with our Hanukkah happenings. So anyone with preschool age and elementary school age children are welcome. We're going to have a Hanukkah sing-along with Rabbi Micah at 11 o'clock. So all of our singers are welcome back. We'll be getting ready for Hanukkah. Of course, the first candle is this Sunday night. We'll be lighting the menorah as well during the week here. And Thursday evening, once again, I will be out at University Station lighting the big menorah. So 5:30, all are welcome. Thanks to Wegmans, there will be some treats. And this year, a Gelt drop. People have asked me if I know what it is. I really don't, but we're going to find out. And of course, next Friday evening, we'll be celebrating Shabbat and Hanukkah at 6:30 p.m. Tomorrow morning as well, you can continue to celebrate Shabbat with our lay-led minyan at 9 a.m. in our library or on Zoom. For our temple members, you can read your weekly shofar email for lots of other information. I do want to especially thank our greeters and ushers this evening, Rob Wasserman. I'm not sure who was outside at the door in the rain. Paul Marsh, thank you. I know many of our temple members volunteered to bring oneg food tonight, so thank you so much. And again, we do have ongoing opportunities to volunteer. It takes volunteers every Shabbat to help greet, to help bring food for our oneg. So please look in your email as well as you can help out, especially in the coming weeks as we move into the school break. We could use some extra hands. So thank you for all of your involvement, participation. We're going to move into our concluding prayers for this Shabbat evening. And again, we do look forward to an oneg following our service. You can find Aleinu L'Shabeach on page 282, and we rise if you're able.
We forgot, it's my fault. We forgot that these wonderful instruments have some instrumental music to share, to just enjoy as we prepare our hearts for Aleinu L'Shabeach. My fault. It's my fault.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'tegedula leotzer breshit, shelo asanu kigoye ha'aratzot, velo samanu kemishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, V'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, va'anachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim, lifnei malach, mache hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu, v'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. We take this moment in our service for memory and to think about our loved ones who are no longer with us. We are especially remembering these loved ones who have passed away in recent weeks. Alice Bushinsky, the grandmother of Lou Bushinsky, along with Jenny, and great-grandmother of Ethan, Ayla, and Rachel. Mark Katzen, brother of Marion Glasgow and brother-in-law of Arthur Glasgow. And Helene Dratch, mother of Lori Minsky and mother-in-law of Gary Minsky. And we remember these loved ones whose yahrzeit, whose anniversary of death occurred this week. Libby Aaron, Sarah Cohen, Rose Kahn, Judith Fishman, Nathan Goldhaber, Rachel Kozlovsky, Edna Krasnow, Neil Letter, Samuel M. Merkin, Mary Soroka, Eli Tarlin, Evelyn Tanofsky. If there are others that you're remembering, you may share their names. We join for Mourner's Kaddish on page 294. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute, b'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehe shmei rabbah mevorach leolam ulalmei amaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei dekudsha b'richu le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shemaya V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be a blessing. Before we conclude with Adon Olam, we're going to go ahead and say our blessings for Shabbat, Kiddush, and Motzi in here before we join our Oneg. Cantor Traitman, would you do us the honors? Page 5.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagadol. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, v'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit, ki hu yom tehila lemikra'e kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim, ki vanu v'acharta v'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat. I am.
And we'll go ahead and bless our challah for Motzi. It is our custom for any kids to come get the first taste of challah, so you can come on up. All right.
This is my student from Hebrew College and her children.
Oh, wonderful.
So nice to meet you.
All right, we'll bless together. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lachem min haaretz. Amen. You can take some for your sibling. All right. All right. Shabbat Shalom again, and we will conclude on page 321.
You may want to sit down. This is again by Salomone Rossi. This is another two-choir piece.
Hashem Allah, v'terech
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom. Shabbat shalom. Thank you all.
Sorry,